Alrighty, so yesterday was D23. We got a handful of announcements for shows out there like Skeleton Crew, the Ahsoka Tano series, Tales of the Jedi, The Bad Batch Season 2, and more. Celebration, however, is going to be the real deal because that's going to be the event and the location that's going to actually be the house of large announcements that will expand the Star Wars roadmap even further. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way, guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing about the new Star Wars universe is that currently Favreau and Filoni are really getting more engaged in a handful of the Star Wars TV shows, not just with The Mandalorian and its surrounding spin-offs, but also with other Star Wars shows out there that are going to go beyond The Mandalorian, that are actually going to go into different points in time in the Star Wars franchise, different eras, so to speak. And that brings us to where we are right now between of what's happening with, of course, Star Wars as a whole. Now, one show that a lot of fans had a lot of criticism over was indeed the Obi Wan Kenobi TV series, and rightfully so. I mean, a lot of fans had valid reasons as to why they had a lot of problems with the Kenobi series, you know, because of what Joby Harold and Deborah Chow had done, and specifically what Kathleen Kennedy allowed them to do, because she had a large hand in the creative process of the Kenobi series. And that brings us to where we are today, alright? So we already know that Obi Wan Kenobi Season 2, it is happening. It's just all a matter of the marketing. Are they really going to call it a Season 2, or are they going to give it a completely different title, since it will be treated as a soft reboot that's going to have a lot more reveals, and it's not going to mention any of the events before the events of the current season. So Season 1 is basically going to be treated like it never happened. And that brings us to where we are today, alright? That brings us to where Favreau and Filoni are and how they are too going to be involved with this Kenobi reboot. However, with Disney executives now planning to make some drastic changes to the Star Wars franchise, they are actually already preparing to develop a second season for Obi Wan Kenobi that will be treated as a soft reboot. Now, it's described that they are set to use many of the storyboards that were created by Stuart Beattie for the original Obi Wan Kenobi trilogy that is now set to be used for the second season of Obi-Wan. Now, one of the big scenes is set to be another flashback to the night of Order 66, except this time around it is set to take place in the streets of Coruscant. Now, the storyboards illustrate a big moment in which there is a lot of fog rising from the streets of the city, where lightsaber clashing can be heard deflecting blaster fire from clone troopers in the distance. This is described to be no other than Mace Windu fighting clone troopers with what appears to be a blue lightsaber blade that he took from one of the fallen Jedi, where he actually has a severed arm bandaged up to aid the actual wound. Now, Windu is said to fight with one arm using the blue saber against the troopers before he rushes into a medical facility where medical droids begin to work on Mace Windu's injury by giving him a bionic arm, and later on in the scene. Now, I want to pause here real quick for a second because in case you guys did not know, Stuart Beattie had pretty much all the storyboards mapped out for the Kenobi movie trilogy. Though he did not have all the scripts all done specifically, he did have a general outline of the Kenobi trilogy. He only talked about the first film, and that's the movie that involved Reva, Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan. There were no Inquisitors in there. But the Kenobi trilogy itself was going to be a very expansive story. It was going to be very involved. They basically wanted to treat it as a kind of prequel 2.0 type of situation where they would have the tone of the prequels, but it would still be considered, you know, something in between the prequels and the original trilogy with a brand new tone. So all the storyboards were complete and finalized to be used in the scripts when they were finished for the Kenobi trilogy. A lot of those storyboards are now being salvaged and are going to be used for Kenobi Season 2 and Kenobi Season 3, where they plan to end the show entirely. Now again, like I say, Season 2 is being treated as a soft reboot, and it's looking more and more likely that Disney is going to give it a brand new title. It's one of the things that are being tossed around right now between executives on whether or not they want to call it Obi Wan Kenobi Season 2, or if they just want to call it something like perhaps Kenobi Returns, or The Return of the Jedi, or something like that, of Obi Wan Kenobi, or anything like that, right? Just any kind of title that signals his return. So that brings us to where we are right now, okay? So beyond all of this is where things begin to progress even further, is that this is said to have been one of the big moments that Beatty was planning to introduce in the third Obi Wan Kenobi movie to end the trilogy with big reveals, including the survival of Mace Windu. Sam Jackson was in contact with Lucasfilm for the Kenobi trilogy until it all fell apart. Now, the other storyboards illustrate another big moment in which Windu then leaves the medical facility, now in black robes that were given to him by the droids, as he hides the saber hilt under his new attire. Now, one of the other illustrations also involved Mace Windu engaging with a mysterious bounty hunter in the streets of Coruscant. It's unclear who this bounty hunter is, but is said to take place days after Order 66 at this point in time. Both Favreau and Filoni are slated to create the scene for the Kenobi show and its reboot that is already in the early stages at Lucasfilm to actually propel Star Wars in a brand new direction for the fans. Now, before I get to the next thing here, keep in mind that Sam Jackson has already been in contact deeply with Favreau and Filoni about his return as Mace Windu. They want to make sure that this is going to be a very big reveal for the fans. They want to make sure it's going to be a very satisfying moment in Star Wars history. And it's what they're building toward with all of the Order 66 flashback scenes in the Book of Boba Fett, in, of course, future Mandalorian seasons and episodes, and also what we got to see in the Kenobi season, alright? The one that was done by Joby Harold and Deborah Chow. They kind of altered with, the Order 66 moments and how they used that as a way to pretty much showcase twists and turns and such. So there's a lot of things happening here, everything between Order 66, showing up in multiple shows, and how that's going to build towards something larger than ever before. The thing about this, too, that I think a lot of fans need to be aware of is the fact that, given that Mace Windu is set to return for this Kenobi reboot, it also gives Favreau and Filoni the opportunity to really give the fans their own version of Mace Windu. Not saying that Mace Windu by George was bad, but this really allows them to experiment with how Mace Windu grows as a character after he receives his injuries, after he is seemingly defeated as a Jedi when he goes up against Palpatine in Episode 3, and how that's going to be used as a way of storytelling in the Kenobi series reboot. So there's a lot to tell here. There's a lot of things that are going to be announced at D23 next year and Star Wars Celebration next year. So there's a lot of things in the pipeline that they want to take slowly. So overall, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Gun in hand, we are alone again. From nights in the